Hello, my name is Connor Quinlan, and in this review I'm going to be doing a full review of the Nikon d5100 digital camera that I have right here. And this is a full review, so I'm basically going to go over all the new features, the look and feel of the camera, the performance of the autofocus, new features, and then of course I'm going to give we're going to look at the image quality, and I'm also going to give recommendations on who this camera really is for. Now, this is one of many reviews that I'm going to be doing for the Nikon d5100. I'm going to be doing lots of other comparisons and high ISO comparisons, sharpness comparisons, comparisons to other cameras and whatnot. So this is just one of many videos that is going to be featuring this camera. So keep a lookout for those. Check out the other videos as well. So the first thing I want to talk about is the look and feel of this camera. How does it feel in the hands? Well, this model, first of all, the biggest difference between it and the D5000, the older model, is that this is a lot smaller than I would have previously imagined. It's a whole new, completely different body, completely redesigned. It's a lot lighter and smaller than its predecessor. It's actually pretty close in size to the Nikon d3100 digital camera. So, how does this feel in the actual hands? Well, since it's smaller, it can be either a good thing or a bad thing. For me personally, my hands are a pretty average, small size, so this feels decent in my hands. However, it definitely doesn't feel as comfortable as something like the D700, and it doesn't feel quite as comfortable as the older model used to. And then for people with large hands, this camera would be difficult to deal with, I can imagine, because not only is the grip pretty small, but there's also, all the controls are located on this side of the screen as well, and I'll get into that a little more later. In general though, pretty good feeling for people with normal size average hands or small hands, and especially if you want the lightest, smallest camera to carry around. D5100 has definitely fulfilled that and got a much smaller size. So the main difference on the body when looking at it is the screen, which is no longer bottom articulated but side articulated, as you can see here. And that actually is a lot more useful for especially stuff like macro photography and for shooting on a tripod in live view at weird angles. It's a lot more useful than a bottom articulated screen. Because of that though, all the controls that used to be over here on the D5000 have now moved to up here and over here as well. I'm not going to go into detail where all the functions and controls move to, because I will be doing a separate video on how to use the D5100, and that I will talk about all the new features and where they've moved. But for now, they've all moved pretty much to this side of the camera. A few other buttons on the body that I've just noticed that have really caught my eye are a new live view button here, and you just do that like so, and then as you can see, it's opened up just like that, and you're able to do what you want there. And then also it has a separate movie button as well up here, which is easy to use. A couple other things that are new right on the body are obviously the not only is the screen swivel and does it swivel more efficiently, but it's also a 921K screen, meaning that it's very high resolution. It's a Vega screen. This is the highest resolution that Nikon has right now in terms of LCD screens, so that's a great upgrade. And then it's still a plastic body, unlike the D7000, which when it was upgraded got a partial magnesium alloy and weather sealed. This body still is plastic and is pretty much similar in terms of body strength, durability, and weather sealing as the Nikon d3100. So those are the main differences right out of the box and looking at the body. Now we're going to talk about performance, mostly AF performance in this case. Now this camera has an 11-point AF system with one cross type AF point. The AF is very fast and very reliable, and of course extremely accurate. Just like with any Nikon, the autofocus systems with Nikon tend to be very accurate, and this autofocus system definitely didn't disappoint. In bright light, it works perfectly fine, obviously, and then low light, it does get a little slower, but it locks on very well and tends to not miss the target when it's dark. So that's a good plus. In the end, I would say it's pretty much the exact same speed and accuracy as the Nikon d3100, which makes sense because it basically uses the same autofocus system in it. And then, of course, since this does not have a separate AF motor, which on some bodies would be along this ring here, it doesn't have that, so you can only use AFS lenses, or lenses that are compatible with this specific camera. That also means that this camera, in terms of autofocus speed, is very lens dependent. It depends what kind of lens you use. That all will make out how fast the camera will autofocus. And of course, if you use something like a third-party lens, it will focus slower than if you use like a AFS Nikon lens that's compatible. So now I want to talk about a few of the features that are new with this camera as well. The newest features are the effects, which you can see are on the top dial here. You switch to those. And what that does is it adds all sorts of different types of cool kind of special effect filters to either your photos or your videos. And it's not necessarily anything useful, but if you're into that sort of thing, you know, it has it. It also has something that's a lot more useful called in-camera HDR. And you can find that in the camera under the shooting menu in there. And then you'll notice it says HDR, high dynamic range, off. You can turn that on. And then you can determine, it'll take 2 shots for you, and then you can determine how far apart in EV those shots will be. It can range from 1 EV apart in difference between exposure to 3 EVs. Sadly, it won't take more than 2 shots. That's the fixed amount it'll take. That's really the only improvement I can see on it though, because the HDR mode is definitely a good success with this camera. It works very well, just as good I think that as I could do in the computer myself. And then you can also combine it with active delighting mode to get a picture with even more dynamic range, and it's very impressive, the shots, the type of detail you can get in shadows and stuff like that. So those are pretty much the new features of the camera. It does have other things as well, such as it has 2 IR sensors. It has one here on the front for your hand there, and then one on the side here when you're taking the picture. And what those will do is that will turn off the screen when you have your eye up here so that it's not so bright in your face at night and stuff. And then now what I'm going to talk about is basically the image quality of the camera. Starting with a new feature that the D5100 has, and that is 14-bit RAW. That was originally for more professional models. Now the D5100 has it, and what that'll give you is basically the absolute best image quality possible right now. It gives you more dynamic range for those shadows and highlights. So those of you who like to shoot RAW and edit, that's a big plus for the D5100. Now, other than that, the main strength of this camera is obviously image quality. It uses the same amazing sensor as the D7000 camera, and therefore also has the same amazing high ISO capabilities as the D7000. It's pretty much better than any other camera out there except for the D7000.